we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. This is the Internal Communications Committee session. My name is Rob Butterfield. I've been involved, I think, since 2016. I was looking back to my first emails to Emily to get involved, and it's been 5 years, I think. So I'm out in Idaho, and I guess that's my quick intro. Michelle, do you want to do a quick intro for yourself?
Hi, everybody. Michelle Ryland. I'm with SCAOI Illinois, and I've been involved with the committee 2 years, maybe three, 2.5 years, I think, and have been co-chairing with Rob for about a year now. I really have no idea because time has gone out the window in the last year. So thanks for joining us, and Rob, back to you.
All right. So just a fairly quick overview of what we do, and our main goal is connecting SEAs and SEA committees to NCSEA and the NCSEA committees. That's a very broad statement, and we can maybe expand on it in our discussions today. We've got about 6 members, and that's been pretty consistent through the year. Typically on the calls, we've got 2 board members and NCSEA staff members, and we are spread out all over the country, from California to Massachusetts down to Tennessee. Our meetings in our year consist of monthly Zoom meetings. We typically have an hour call once a month. And then we'll sprinkle some other meetings in there as needed to update and coordinate for whatever other planning needs to be done. We've done pretty well this year. I'm pretty happy with sharing responsibilities among the committee members. Everyone's been real active. People are taking a lot of responsibility to participate in the different events that we've sponsored throughout the year, and there's been 3 or 4 of those. One of the things that we like to do is it's called Pechakuchas, and it's an opportunity for each committee member to share something about themselves, so we can get to know you more than as an engineer. We kind of all know what engineers do, but what do we do in our spare time and free time? And so that's been a fun activity this year, and we're getting to know our members on a more personal level.
Yeah, so just to add to that, so every month we start our meetings with like 5 or 10 minutes where one committee member is doing a Pechakucha. So it kind of just breaks up the monotony of committee meeting after committee meeting. So that's been a good thing that we've started this year. Just a quick few minutes on things we've accomplished in this last year. We started the leadership retreat last year, and we are currently in our 2nd annual leadership retreat. So it was supposed to be in person last May, and then, a pandemic happened. And so we went virtual in June of last year. And so lessons we learned during that retreat, feedback received from all of the SCAs have guided and dictated how the current leadership retreat looks. So hopefully you're finding all of these sessions helpful and useful for your SCA. We also did a focus group discussion among some of our SCAs. So we really asked for volunteers, who wants to be involved in this discussion, because it is, we did ask them to do some work ahead of time and, actively participate in a 2-hour-long conversation and things like that. So it was a bit of a time commitment. We did get a lot of people respond that they wanted to participate. And then from that list, we kind of tried to get a good spread of geographical areas, representatives from small SCAs versus large SCAs. We had an executive director involved. And, so just try to get a wide representation from all across the country. And the point of the focus group was to understand what communication methods are working and which ones are not. You know, NCSEA operates under a delegate model, which, you know, NCSEA's members are the state's organizations. And so each state has a delegate that represents them at the national level. And we've found that sometimes the communication isn't getting to who it needs to get to. And so we're just trying to understand what works for your state might not always work for this state. Is there a happy medium that we can come to that works for the wide majority of people? To really just improve relations between, again, the states and NCSEA, and also to facilitate the communication between committees at the state level and committees at the national level, because there is a lot of overlap. And again, just making those connections can help everyone's job go smoothly. So that was the purpose of the focus group. It happened just 2 weeks ago. So we are still kind of digesting all of that information and the conversation from the focus group, and hope to implement some ideas suggested in the near future. And then also one thing we started doing last year was, so the Internal Communications Committee is responsible for putting on what's called MO communication webinar once a month. And so, and the purpose of those is to kind of highlight the different NCSEA committees and for them to present to all the states, say, hey, this is what our committee is working on, and just to keep everyone in the loop. And what we started doing last summer and fall was we would have a communication webinar, and then about a week later, we'd have a follow-up open discussion for anyone to join in a format like this. Everyone has mics and cameras, and you can talk about what was discussed in the communication webinar versus, you know, just having a simple Q&A at the end. And really having those open discussion sessions. We've received a lot of positive feedback from those. The delegates that attended really liked being able to converse with each other and share ideas. And I can say personally, I have some ideas from those discussions I took back to Illinois and said, hey, this is a really good idea that this state's doing. We should try and implement it here. And so there's been a lot of positives that have come out of that. And so it's something we want to continue doing. In the past, the delegate interaction has happened once a year at the summit. And so we're trying to create these opportunities for the delegates to connect more frequently and with something like this. So that was really long. So I'll pass stuff to you, Rob, for what we're hoping to accomplish this coming year.
Yeah, great job. Thank you. And then our goals for this next year are, again, to continue to assist NCSEA staff with the continued development that Michelle was just talking about, and also improvement of the leadership retreat. That's going to be an ongoing thing, and hopefully it turns into an in-person event in the future. We're also looking at the online website and trying to update the SEA resources and delegate handbook just to make that more user-friendly. It's going to be a work in progress for a little while, I think. It's a pretty big effort. And then, of course, just, I guess, all the other base camp discussions, webinars, the delegate calendar, helping to coordinate the board liaisons with the SEAs. That's part of that relationship between NCSEA and SEA, and then coordinating with the individual committees between NCSEA and SEA. And then this year, we're also trying to establish and maintain relationship with NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. So we got a full slate ahead of us for this year and into next year. Always looking for additional volunteers, of course. But that wraps it up for our little presentation. Michelle, unless you want to comment on any more for the goals, we can open it up.
Nope, I'm good. Maybe we can stop screen sharing and maybe see a few more people's faces. And
Sure.
then if anyone has any questions for Rob or I about what the purpose of the committee, if you're interested in joining, like Rob said, we always welcome new, fresh ideas to the table. Or Emily or Ed, if you have anything you'd like to add, you've been involved with the committee much longer than the two of us have.
I will say that, you know, the delegate model is something that is, I guess it's going to be a constant work in progress. It's something that needs to evolve as all of the state organizations evolve and grow, as NCSEA continues to evolve and grow. So it's something that has to be adaptive, and so I think the way Michelle I guess approached it here today is correct. It's that we need that feedback from the SEAs in order to continue to morph the delegate model so that it suits the needs of as many of the SEAs as we possibly can. And at the end of the day, it is all about communication and just being able to find those easy ways to share information and to talk to each other. So I see that as the biggest charge for this committee, is to continue to find new paths forward in establishing communications with the 44 SEAs. So great work so far.
Thanks, Ed.
Good.
I recognize some names in the participant list, some delegates that have been involved in some of our past events. Maybe if you're comfortable chiming in on your feedback on the various events that we've had in the past, you can be critical if you'd like to.
Michelle, I think you have some delegates here, and I think you maybe have, I see at least a few communications committee chairs from MOs. I wonder if you might be able to comment how those people might get involved. Is it important that it's only a delegate work with the internal communications committee, or is there a way that someone who does communications at an MO level might interface with this group?
Yeah, that's a great point. I would say the answer is no, it does not have to be a delegate. That is the only one that's doing the communicating. The purpose of having the delegate is so that there is one person to go to be responsible, but we want to bring more people in because more ideas, more heads together are really going to just improve all of our organizations. So best way to be involved, reach out to Rob and I. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, or you can always get in touch with Leo. Leo Barron's on the call today. He's a great resource to distribute communication and get people connected, and then we can take it from there as well. But yeah, like Michelle was saying, just reiterate that the more people, more heads are better with better ideas. So it doesn't just have to be a delegate that contacts us.
How about the size of your committee? You said you have 6. Is that enough? Are you looking for more members? And if so, how would a person go about joining?
Yes, we do. We have 6 members plus 2 board members who are regularly involved in our monthly meetings, including staff. And it's hard to say. Some people on the committee have been involved for a while. There are newer members who are getting their feet wet. So I think we could use a few more voices and ideas to help do the work when we need to plan an event. It's easier to delegate when there are more people involved. So If you're interested in joining the committee, I believe Dana has shared a link in the chat with a committee volunteer application form. I feel ignorant. I didn't know we had one, but if you are interested, please feel free to fill that out or contact Rob and I separately. Our emails are on the website. If you'd like more information, we're happy to connect offline. But yeah, we definitely would love more people involved.
Michelle and Rob, this is Dave. I have a question. You had a slide up earlier that was talking about, as the internal communications committee, who you're trying to connect to one another. And this organization, as we know, is very complex because we've got this national layer, and then we've got 44 different state level layers that have different organizations. They're not all the same, obviously. So you mentioned delegates. I think you mentioned NCSEA committee chairs. There's also, I'm going to say, leadership of the MOs, and then there are committees at the MOs that have parallel committees at the national level. So there's a lot of people to try to connect. Do you feel like you have a priority as to what's most important and how best to connect people? How do you go about trying to connect all those different people? Obviously, we know what you're doing with the monthly webinars, and I think that's kind of for delegates, but it's probably open for everyone as well, right?
Yes.
But in particular, I was wondering about committees, because I know sometimes, even from Illinois' standpoint, it seems like we have committees that are doing things that aren't really necessarily communicating with national level committees or other committees that are similar in other states. So is there anything that you're doing that would be good that we know about or could do to help committees communicate? Maybe it's through the delegate, maybe it isn't.
No, that's a great question. Thank you for that, Dave. Yes, there are a lot of facets of communication to our organization, and the committee connections have been more of a difficult, or we haven't been as successful with making strides with connecting committees, national committees to state committees yet. We are working on that. Last week we had a committee chair, NCSEA committee chair roundtable discussion, where a lot of ideas were shared about how we can best get updates really from the national committee level to share those with the state. So I think right now what we're trying to improve upon doing is providing those regular updates of national committees to the delegates to then share those with the states. And then I think the next tier is to actually connect state committees with national committees.
And that's part of what we're trying to do with this 3-day retreat, by having each committee has their own dedicated session. Hopefully your MO, if they have a counterpart committee, has sent their chair to that. So it's kind of, we're trying to do that kickoff, like, here's your chance to send not your delegate, but your committee chair to that meeting to form that relationship and ideally move forward. Also, we have some MOs who have asked for, and we have delivered, let's say, a roster of anyone within that MO who participates at an NCSEA committee level. We find that there's a lot of just kind of confusion about who's sitting on what committee. So if that's helpful to you to say, hey, I'm in Utah, can you tell me anyone who's from SEA Utah that's on an NCSEA committee? We can help connect those dots. And we're trying to be a little bit more intentional with publishing kind of our committees, our chairs, and then allowing you to figure out where your committees fit into that structure.
Emily, you raise a question for me. When I look at the different NCSEA committee rosters on the website, I notice that many, if not all, of the individuals have their firm name, their firm name, and then the SEA name that they participate in. is it the expectation when they serve on an NCSEA committee that they are speaking on behalf of that MO, or is the expectation that they are speaking on behalf of their individual perspectives and so forth? How is the structure of a committee from MO to NCSEA, and what is that role of that individual?
So I'm going to separate the answer into two pieces. The first one, we are not a technical code committee, but I'm going to answer for our code advisory committee because they have slightly different rules. And their session is later today. So for a code advisory committee, there are certain spots held for certain geographies, and those are voting members. And then there are what are called MO liaison or corresponding, and those people who serve in that capacity have to be nominated by their MO and are absolutely responsible for being a conduit between the two organizations and for speaking for their organization. So there's a formal title, and then there's sort of observing individual members. So you may be Ken Odell, who just is an interested person in wind and attending and not with a SEOC after your name. That would be, you would take that last classification of an individual attendee. So code advisory has a little bit more specific. You have a title and it's very clear if you're answering for your MO or as an individual. For our non-code advisory committees, it is less clear. We sometimes have voting members, but usually that's more associated with getting funding to attend the summit, for example. We don't do a lot of voting on things that really need geographic diversity, and we frankly don't do a lot of voting at a committee level. But the hope is if you're participating on a committee that you are a conduit for your MO. It's certainly a missed opportunity if that's not what's happening. But it's, I would say there's not the formality of SEOC has to sign off for you, Ken, to be allowed to be on our committee. That process doesn't exist for our non-technical committees.
Thank you.
That's a great question, Ken, and thank you, Emily, for fielding that one. We've got about 5 minutes left. Anyone else have any other questions about the committee, ideas for things we should undertake this year?
I asked this question at my own risk. Is there a kind of comprehensive list that shows, okay, here's a national committee on topic A, and here's all the MO committees, SEA committees on that same topic A. Here's topic B, national, and here's the states that have topic B, etc. Is there one piece of paper, one document that kind of summarizes all that stuff in one place?
I was going to shoot that out to Leo unless you want to respond, Emily.
I don't know. I think it exists on a committee by committee. I don't know about the one spreadsheet, but I'm going to do wind again because I just use that as an example. We do have a spreadsheet that says, here's the national committee, the chair, and here are all the MOs that have a wind committee. And as a chair of wind, I have that document. It is my job, and I have reached out to those MOs and hopefully brought them into the fold. So it exists on a committee level. I don't think it exists on a master level, Dave. And I'll be honest, it only exists to the power that our SEAs assist with. So every year when we ask for your report, your MO report, we take that data and we feed it back to our committees. So if you didn't fill out the MO report about your committees and your committee chairs, or you have an old committee chair there, then the data that we have is old and we're bothering someone who's no longer in that position. So some work to be done there, I think, on both sides, but conceptually it does exist, as you suggested, Dave.
Thank you.
And Dave, we're also thrilled to help out too. So in other words, if someone came to us and said, look, we're trying to get a communications committee off the ground, or we're trying to get a fill in the blank committee off the ground, who else around us, near us, has something? We'll do a quick look and try to find that information for them. We're happy to do that at any point in time. So yeah, consider that an option too for those of you that are on this specific call.
So the collection of data is onerous. the compiling of the data becomes quite the task. But the value of the data is now you have a document that all of those MOs can receive, so that if California's WIN committee wants to talk to New York's WIN committee, they have that immediate connection. If they want to, you know, now all of a sudden you have this resource. Do the MOs understand the value of providing that information because they get something back from it rather than just providing it?
If you're asking me, I don't know. And let's be honest, I mean, I think that's true, but also realize this, Ken. You know, when I looked at all the California committees, I went, oh my goodness, you guys have a list. And then you go across the border to Nevada and they have, and, you know, Nebraska has, you know, that kind of a thing. So there is a disconnect in some regards. It's not like they all have even a committee structure local, but the ones that do, yeah, you're right. That would be a valuable connection.
Yeah, clearly understood. We all suffer from either too much information or too little information. And I can tell you from California, when I look at that matrix of committees, I wonder how many of them are actually effective because we're spread so thin.
Understand.
And I'm assuming if you guys are looking for that information, you probably don't care if it's in an Excel file that gets emailed out once someone contacts, say, a WIN committee, or if it's online. Would you rather see it in a resource link online? Maybe that's Ken, what do you think on, does it matter?
In whatever form makes it the easiest to keep current. You know, whether it's a shared Google form or a Basecamp approach, you know, certainly the accessibility of it and the current nature of it are the two driving things. Whatever that form takes, I think just is led from that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, thanks.
It'd be great if we could, you know, have a Google form and then have every MO take the lead to keep it updated, but therein lies a different type of problem.
Oh, Ken, I love you for that idea.
Well, we've got about another minute. Any final comments?
I love your shirt, Ed. It goes with that sunny disposition of Oregon today.
Yeah, well, I actually bought it in Palm Springs, so I bought it in sunny California.
Well, there you go. Sorry, not quite the technical last comment.
No, that's great.
Well, we're not a technical committee, so that's okay.
We're a very light committee sometimes. So appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you for the comments. And yeah, like Michelle was saying, if you would like to volunteer, there's a link in the chat box. And if you have any other questions, either shoot Michelle or I questions, or feel free to get a hold of Leo, and you can get a hold of us as well. So thank you again.
I will say, you know, you guys are doing a great job. This committee has come a long way since Emily and I kind of created it and got it going, and you guys have taken it in a great direction and continue to build. It's just great job. So thank you. And you also make it look like a lot of fun, which is important. So great job.
Yes. Thanks,
Keep
Ed.
it up.
It was a lot of fun. Yes.
Nice to have Michelle.
Thank you.
Thanks.